The second he came into the house, my mum knew it was him. He had this big old duffel bag. He had an axe, petrol, he had a shotgun, he had a little butcher knife as well. Yeah. I don't get how he did it to his daughter.
You can't look at your own family and decide to do that without being a monster.
Just makes you think, what would he have done to me?
Thank God you left.
This was hugely shocking. It made national headlines.
People are simply stunned by what's happened.
I could never forgive him what he's done.
I said, you need to get out, he's going to hurt you.
Oakes reaches a point where he has irretrievably lost control. So this is the point where he becomes incredibly dangerous.
The last call in a catalogue of contact was made by Christine to officers on May the 27th. 10 days later, her and her 2-year-old daughter Shania were murdered here in their home.
I was told time and time again, done nothing.
He was pure evil, pure evil.
Chrissy was like the most happiest woman that you would come across.
Chrissy Chambers was born in Barking in 1973, growing up to be a happy and popular young woman who appeared regularly in local beauty contests.
She was funny, witty. She'd never have a dull day, and even if she felt rubbish herself, she'd always, laugh.
When Chrissy was 19 years old, she met her boyfriend Ian, and the couple had 2 children together, Chelsea and her older brother Guy.
She was just lovely, is the word to describe her. Every time I was around her, there was always something to do, but it would never be boring with her, if that makes any sense.
We used to go out to fields a lot and do berry picking, go to see petting farms and stuff like that, little things like that I liked a lot.
Life for Ian and Chrissy wasn't easy. They spent a period living in their car while homeless, before eventually splitting up in 2003. The couple remained on good terms, sharing custody of the children, with Chrissy and Chelsea living together, while Guy moved in with his father.
She always put us first. She always decided to not just make sure we were living, but make sure we were enjoying life, you know.
She'd always made sure that we had what we wanted, what we need, made sure we ate, clothes on our back, all of that.
By 2004, Chrissy was a single mum living in a council house in Bartram Avenue, Braintree, and was keen to find someone to share her life with again.
It was very important to Chris to find love.
I mean, there was times when she would say, oh, I haven't got a man in my life, what's wrong with me?
In July 2005, when Chelsea was 5 and Guy was 7, Chrissy began dating 45-year-old nightclub bouncer David Oakes.
He seemed like a nice guy, big, 6 foot tall. There was this connection between them, and he made her happy.
I think she wanted to better herself with Dave. He'd done a lot of renovations to her house.
Oakes was almost 13 years older than Chrissy and already had 2 children from previous relationships.
David was very friendly with people, very nice, buy them drinks all night, take them out for a meal.
Oakes quickly integrated himself into the lives of Chrissy and her children, taking them all on their very first foreign holiday.
He was quite nice to begin with, he did a lot for us, brought us a lot. We went to Turkey with him. That was really nice, I liked that.
I guess you could say I wasn't there often enough to see them where I was living with my father. But the few times I did see them together having fun, it looked really good.
To me, he was well off. He has a lot of money, he doesn't mind splashing it around. And they'd buy me a massive unicorn teddy bears and stuff.
He showered her with gifts, he'd take her out for meals. That's kind of what he did to make her happy.
Within months, Oakes had moved in with Chrissy and 5-year-old Chelsea. But friends soon began to notice subtle changes in his behaviour.
He'd planned everything out for her. And then she'd tell me her plans, what she's going to do at the weekend with them, because they had plans. At the time, I didn't think he had, was controlling her. Looking back now, yeah, there was an element of control.
Our relationship was a bit weird because obviously I had my dad. I went to see my dad and I loved my dad. And he didn't like my dad and he'd be like, call your dad Ian and call me dad. And I'd be like, no, I don't really feel comfortable with that. And then he kicked off until I did start calling him dad. So I had to call him dad, even though I didn't want to.
So when a perpetrator first comes on the scene, they are charming, they are attentive, they are incredibly loving, or they appear to be. And they will present themselves as not just a good boyfriend, but the best boyfriend in the world, one who is indispensable, who you cannot live without. And that creates a dependency right from the word go. And what the perpetrator's trying to do here is secure commitment from that victim. He's wanting her children to call him dad, because that asserts his status within this family unit.
Soon, Oakes' controlling behaviour resulted in outbursts of anger.
David Oakes was, by all accounts, a violent, controlling man. The people in Braintree at the time had said that he was a bit of a psycho.
They had silly arguments. He would only buy cans of Coke, not bottles of Coke. And if she got a bottle of Coke and poured it out in his drink, he'd get the ump.
It was petty little things that would kick him off as if he had just been personally attacked. He would get angry, very angry.
Well, they'd argue when I was in bed. I always heard them. That started when I think I was about 7-ish. And then it got more apparent, more in the daytime, more visible. So if Mum would go out drinking and she drank a bit too much for his liking, there'd be World War III about it at home because he's embarrassed her and all of that.
In February 2008, 34-year-old Chrissy discovered she was pregnant.
She texted me and said to me, oh God, guess what? I was like, what? She went, I'm pregnant. I was like, oh, okay, brilliant. And that's brilliant news. And I said to her, like what you were hoping for? She said, oh, I don't care. As long as it's a healthy baby, that's the main thing. And I said, no, that's good. And she was just ecstatic and over the moon with it. She couldn't wait. I think that probably gave her a little bit of hope as well, that things might get better and change maybe.
Chrissy was so excited for the new baby, she couldn't wait. And we used to go out shopping together to buy baby clothes.
I was over the moon. I always wanted to be a big sister, and then when I found out it was a girl as well, I was like, yay, I'm going to be a big sister to a little girl. And I was so happy. I remember crying in the car with her. I was really, really excited to meet her, really excited that she was going to be born, there was going to be a little sister. I just wanted to take care of someone, I guess.
I had a lot of mixed emotions about when she fell pregnant with Shania. I was happy for her, don't get me wrong, but there's the obvious that it's not just hers, it's his. And it kind of sounds selfish, but I didn't want him having that extra foot in the door and having that extra security of staying.
It was around the time of Chrissy's pregnancy when Chelsea, aged 8, and Guy, aged 9, first became aware of the full extent of Oakes' violent temper.
It was a very subtle change, so it started slowly happening with arguments, then it would go to pushing and shoving, and then knives would come out and go into the walls.
I felt very, very useless, especially at that age. When I saw the absolute worst of it, there was a lot of build-up to it, such as a time I think it was a can of beans, he threw something heavy at Chelsea's face and it hit her in the eye.
He was arguing with Mum, And I'd done the classic, get in the middle of him, don't hurt my mum sort of thing. And he was like, get out of my way, or you're going to get it. And I was like, yeah, I don't care, you'll have to go through me first. And then, yeah, he just grabbed a can of beans out the cupboard and launched it at my face. And then I had a cut on my eyebrow, and my eye was swollen like that for ages. I couldn't go to school for like a month.
Once you see something that heavy, even the once, you know it's not going to change from someone of his age who's grown that far into his life, and that's the resort he goes to get his own way. You know there's no safety in that sort of relationship.
In February 2008, 35-year-old Chrissy Chambers was pregnant and living with David Oakes in Bartram Avenue, Braintree. But despite Chrissy's newfound happiness, some of her friends already had their doubts about Oakes.
We'd heard rumours about him, that he wasn't a very nice person, but we didn't see that side of it.
David was always in trouble with the police when he was growing up, in fighting. I was with David for 18 years. Started off okay, but within a few months in the relationship, I started seeing a change in him. He started getting angry, sort of a few slaps around the face.
I always had my doubts, you know, before I even met him. That was the typical, you know, when it's your mother and she says there's someone new besides who you're used to, like your father, you're always going to have them doubts. I always knew he wasn't quite right from the moment I met him.
The people in Braintree have said that he was good at fighting, he could take on 3 or 4 people at once. They suggested that he was involved in drug dealing and debt collection, and if you owed him money, he would break your legs if you didn't pay up.
In 2008, while Chrissy was pregnant, the couple began spending weekends at a caravan park, about 45 minutes' drive from their home.
We'd go there all the time. It was like a second home, pretty much.
By this time, Oakes' first wife, Kim, had remarried and remembers meeting Chrissy after being invited to the caravan site by Oakes.
I met Chrissy down the caravan they had together and, you know, had a few drinks, had a game of bingo. And I looked at her and I knew there was something wrong. And she just looked nervous all the time, you know, because I've been through it myself and I was nervous, so you can pick up on other people. And I said, you need to get out, because he's going to hurt you.
A really common question when they look at a relationship where abuse is taking place is, why doesn't the victim just leave? And it really is not that easy, because when somebody is in a situation like this, that perpetrator has gradually chipped away at their sense of their own identity.
But the worst time was when me and Chelsea were outside after they had proper started arguing. I just remember him coming outside, holding her by the hair and smashing her face on a banister that was outside.
And he was just holding her by the hair, smashing her head on the banister railing.
And I could do nothing but hug Chelsea, and she hugged me as we just stood and watched, because where we were so young and so little, I couldn't do anything.
Mum was like crying, like saying stop it, saying it's okay for it and stuff, and we're just like, you just can't do anything. I was shocked.
Just had to stand there and, you know, just watch it, really, while she was just screaming for him to stop.
A lot of people at the campsite knew, because he was quite a scary, intimidating person, so no one would do anything. So there's times where we'd go knocking on caravans like, can someone help us, and call the police. And they'd all just lock the doors on us, and we'd be like, oh, thanks, guys.
When you have violence and abuse going on a regular basis, and it has essentially become part of normal everyday life, it does tend to go unchallenged, because somebody like Oakes is acting with impunity here. He is getting away with it. There are not any consequences for this behaviour. So he is going to continue to use this violence.
I spent a lot of time away from my mother's because I didn't want to be around him. A fair bit of it was fear, and a lot of it was anger. And I can't say what I want to say around him in case it comes back on not only me, but my family.
On October the 27th, 2008, Chrissy gave birth to her daughter Shania. 7-year-old Chelsea was delighted at the prospect of having a little sister.
So I could hear my mum giving birth. I remember when I went in there, and it's just a little tiny baby, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a big sister. I was so happy.
She was very much like Chrissy, you know, always smiling and bopping around, and just a really happy child. And she was stunningly beautiful.
I was happy to have a sister along the way. That's a given, you know. But it made me scared about the extra grip he might have over her because of that, and he did. You know, it's the exact reason why she put up with him for so long, because she had to worry about yet another person, whereas Shania should have been able to live life absolutely fine. But she couldn't, and neither could my mum, because he was always there dangling over them.
During the first few months of Shania's life, Oakes assumed the role of doting father.
He was a good dad. He was, and he devoted his time with that little girl.
Like everything, he would start out with a good act, seeming like he would make sure she got what she needed.
But the birth of his daughter also seemed to amplify Oakes's controlling behaviour.
Shania's birth is quite a significant event within this story, because pregnancy and having a new child in the family, it's a double-edged sword for perpetrators, because in one sense it's an enhanced opportunity to control your victim because you now have a lifetime link with them, but at the same time it can represent a loss of control.
I remember when Chris was home with Shania and I popped round one day. He didn't really want to let me in the house, and he was like, Chris is upstairs sleeping, and I'm like, and? I always come in. So I walked in the house, you know, just the atmosphere in the house, I didn't feel comfortable there.
He got jealous of anybody that, you know, men that Chrissy would speak to, friends, you know, and Chrissy was just a friendly person, and he knew that, but he just couldn't help himself.
By April 2011, Oakes's controlling behaviour and unpredictable violence had become so bad that Chrissy finally decided to end their 6-year relationship.
Chrissy told me that her and Dave are no longer together, and I just said, oh, okay. Any reason? She went, I just don't want to talk about it.
She just said that Dave was now living at the caravan, that she threw him out. She said that he'd beat her up so many times.
There can be several catalysts for victims choosing to leave perpetrators, but I think when we're looking at Chrissy, Shania is a very significant factor here. We have a new child in the family who she wants to protect, essentially. And the sad reality with many victims of domestic abuse is that they have long given up on themselves. The perpetrator has been quite successful at making them feel worthless, making them feel like they deserve the abuse. But one thing that they do not give up on is their children.
When Mum finally told him, I'm going to file for custody of Shania, I'm not getting back with you, that's done. As soon as she said that, her phone was non-stop all the time. I'm going to kill you, I'm going to come find you, I'll kill all of you. Shania's my daughter.
On April 21st, 2011, Chrissy was granted a non-molestation order, banning Oakes from coming within 100 metres of her.
He was a real threat.
I believe she thought her life was in danger. She went to the police a few times. Her filled forms out.
The police had been round to either his property or Chrissy Chambers' house 6 times. So they knew he was violent, they knew he was controlling, and this would have been in response to incidents where he'd either been violent towards Chrissy or threatened her really seriously.
She knew the levels he'd go to. She knew him long enough to know that if she was to up and leave, he wouldn't have it.
On May the 25th, 2011, Chrissy made a formal statement to police saying she was still being pestered and harassed by Oakes.
I think she retracted the statement and didn't want to do it. Maybe because he'd caused more trouble for her.
Reporting domestic abuse to the police is not a particularly easy thing to do, because if you make that official, if you take that out of your own hands, your control over it has gone to an extent. Other people know about the abuse now. It takes on a momentum of its own. And this is one of the reasons why victims do not report their abuse, because they are the people who know the perpetrators the best. They know what their triggers are.
On June the 2nd, 2011, Chrissy handed Essex police copies of over 100 abusive and threatening text messages sent to her by Oakes.
She seemed very scared. I've never seen Chris that scared in my whole life before.
I know that she contacted the police and she didn't know how to get help, you know, and when she did ask for the help, I believe that like the help didn't come.
I think that's when he started thinking, oh, I'm not going to have my daughter call someone else dad. I'm not going to have you in a relationship with someone else.
Oakes reaches a point where he realises that he has irretrievably lost control of Chrissy and Shania. And whatever he tries to do, he is not going to be able to get her back within the relationship. So this is the point where he becomes incredibly dangerous, because there is a shift in his thinking. He can't control her through keeping her in the relationship anymore, so he's going to control her by destroying her for leaving the relationship.
One day it wasn't going to be her, it was going to be Chelsea or Shania or me.
On Sunday the 5th of June 2011, Chrissy Chambers was preparing to face David Oakes in court the next day to discuss future contact arrangements between Oakes and their 2-year-old daughter Shania.
The day started all right. We was picking Shania up from him, so she wasn't there in the morning. We was getting ready to go get her and stuff. Mum was stopping on the way to the neighbours, like on the way up the road.
I remember the day Chrissy dropped Shania off at the shop down the road. And she popped round to see me in the evening and just said to me, I've just dropped Shania off with Dave. And I said, oh, OK. Should you have? She went, well, that's his daughter. I'm not depriving him of his daughter. I can't do that. So that shows you the type of person that she was. And then she said to me, oh, he said something to me. And I said, oh, what's that? And he said, if I can't have you, no one else will. And Shania will never call anyone else dad ever. And I said, oh, that's strange. She went, yeah, I don't know what he meant by that.
She was walking away with Chelsea and Shania to go home. And me and my dad were turning to go into number 1 hour close. As she was walking down the road, something told me to just stress how much I loved her. And I always look back on this as really, really strange. I just told her I'd always love her. I just love her unconditionally, and that, you know, she was one of the best things in my life. And I guess they were good last words to get in there, you know. Just didn't expect them to be the last ones, you know.
Because the 6th of June, she was coming to court to get custody for Shania. And the 5th of June was the Sunday, and I got in bed about midnight, and I said to my partner, oh my God, I didn't ring Chris.
On the night of Sunday the 5th of June, Chrissy, Chelsea and Shania were all staying together in Bartram Avenue, while Guy was at his father's house a few streets away.
It felt a little bit weird the whole day, I don't know why, but just felt uncomfortable, I don't know. So after she come back, she's made dinner and stuff, it's just quiet. And then we go to bed, it was like 8 p.m.
At around midnight, David Oakes entered the house carrying a duffel bag.
The night itself, how I'd explain it is, I don't know, something out of a nightmare. It was just all tragic and terrible.
After entering the house, Oakes made his way to the upstairs bedroom, where Chrissy, Chelsea and Shania were all sleeping together.
The second he got in there, he hit Mum in the face to get her out of bed. And then I was like, oh my God. Shania was in the bed with us. And he had this big old duffel bag. He had petrol. He had an axe. He had a shotgun. He had a little hatchet knife and a butcher knife as well. He had loads of stuff. He had a case of bullets. And he was saying, I'll kill myself, I'll kill Shania and Chelsea, and then I'll cut your leg off and your nipple and shave your hair so you're wheeling down the road after your children with nothing left to live for. He told me, he was like, if I hear one siren, as soon as I hear a siren, you're all getting shot. And he like explained to me how a shotgun works and how there'd be body parts everywhere because they ricochet out. After about an hour upstairs, obviously I'm crying the whole time because I'm super scared. So he went downstairs because he was sick of hearing me crying and took Mum with him. And then that's when he was like describing everything, but I was at the top of the stairs listening. So he was explaining to her how she was going to die. And he cut some of her hair off because when she come up, she had like bits missing up to here and stuff. And then Shania started crying, so I took her into her bedroom and I was like, you're going to be fine, he's just acting like a freak, he's your dad, he's not going to hurt you. And then she fell asleep. So then I went into my bedroom and I started proper freaking out and I was like, oh my God, we're all going to die. And then he was like, go sort your daughter out, shut her up from crying, because they was downstairs at this point. So my mum come up and she didn't have a top on, she was just in her underwear with bits of her hair missing, she's bleeding from her mouth. She was like, you need to get out. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can. How am I going to get out with you without you or Shania? And she was like, you don't think about me or Shania, you just go.
While Oakes was downstairs, Chrissy told Chelsea to try and escape out of her bedroom window.
And then he came back up because she was taking too long to talk to me. And then they went back downstairs and then I put my shoes on. And I went out my window, dropped down into the garden, and I ran to my dad's.
A few streets away, Guy was asleep at his father's house.
I remember at the time I wanted to sleep downstairs with my dad. I liked sleeping in my room, but we enjoyed sleeping downstairs together to watch the telly and just chill out, you know. Ended up passing out on the mattress downstairs that we had set up. I remember waking up to Chelsea banging on the back door. I think it was 1 a.m. My dad answered it and Chelsea came running in.
I was like, Dad, oh my God. And he let me in. He's like, what's wrong? Why are you here? Why are you freaking out? And I was like, he's got a gun. I don't know what to do. Can't call the police because otherwise he'll kill him. And he was like, we've got to call the police.
Quick, Dave's at Mum's. He's got a gun. He's threatening to do all this. He's already hurt her. We need to get the police.
Then the police got called and they was like, are you sure that you're not lying?
And everything just kicked off after that point.
So then they came, picked us all up, took us to the police station. They made me pick out the gun that he had and everything.
Police officers arrived at Chrissy's address and tried to communicate with Oakes while waiting for armed response units to arrive.
So, early hours of the morning, we hear shouting out the front of the house. It was the police. And I just kept saying, like, why are they not going in? Why are they not going in? Because something serious is going on.
My news desk would have said to me, Gareth, get to the scene, find out what's going on. We had very few details initially, but when we got to Bartram Avenue, myself and the camera crew, it was clear that this was a major story. Every other reporter in 50 miles was at the scene.
And I just remember saying, David Oakes, please come to the door.
After Oakes failed to respond to police, armed units finally entered the property in the early hours of Monday, June the 6th.
It got to, I believe, about 7 in the morning, 6, 7 in the morning. They'd all come down, the police had got in the house and everything, and I remember seeing a stretcher coming out, and there was a sheet over it, and his hand come out, and I kind of looked, I was like, oh God, Mark, my husband, I was like, come to the window, because you could see, like I say, 3 doors away, so you could see what was going on. And we didn't know whose hand it was.
On the morning of Monday the 6th of June 2011, 10-year-old Chelsea and 11-year-old Guy were with their father at a local police station, waiting for news of their mother and sister, who had been held hostage by a shotgun-wielding David Oakes.
I was on the 2nd floor in the police station. I remember looking out the window and seeing my dad talking to some police officers, and he kind of just dropped onto his knees and just started crying. I'd never seen him cry like that before.
There's been so many occasions where I've been scared for her life, and she's always come out of it, so I thought she'll come out of it again. I'll see her in a couple hours.
We were taken into a room. My nan was there. My dad was there. My dad tried breaking it to us gently. She's gone off with the angels or something like that, trying to break it gently to us. We didn't understand. And then my nan's just said, your mum's dead. She's been shot with your sister, and they're not coming back.
Chrissy Chambers and her 2-year-old daughter Shania were murdered by David Oakes in the early hours of Monday, June the 6th, 2011.
This was hugely shocking. It made national headlines. The fact that Oakes had apparently shot his ex-partner, but also his own 2-year-old daughter.
The last call in a catalogue of contact was made by Christine to officers on May the 27th. 10 days later, her and her 2-year-old daughter Shania were murdered here in their home.
My son phoned me around about 8 o'clock in the morning and said, have you heard what Dad's done? He shot Chrissy and Shania and put the phone down, and I just literally ran to the toilet and I was physically sick.
I remember going to the house and there was reporters outside, police were outside.
It didn't seem real that our friend had gone, and then we found out that he'd shot Shania.
Police found Oakes inside the address with self-inflicted gunshot wounds to his face. He was taken to hospital and later charged with double murder.
It must have been incredibly traumatic when the police officers went into the property. Chrissy Chambers, she'd been shot in the stomach, she'd been tortured, and then up the stairs, I believe they would have found the body of a 2-year-old. Shania had been shot at point-blank range.
Chrissy and Shania Chambers were buried together on the 28th of July 2011 at St Peter and Paul's Church in St Osyth.
I went to see Chrissy and Shania at the Chapel of Rest to say my goodbyes, and I bought a locket for me and Chrissy, She's got half and I've got my half. And it was lovely because Chrissy had a ribbon wrapped round her hand and it went over to Shania's coffin and it was in Shania's hand and all. But we couldn't see Shania. She had to have a lock coffin because what Dave done to her.
Despite turning the gun on himself, David Oakes survived, and in April 2012 pleaded not guilty to the murder of Chrissy and Shania at Chelmsford Crown Court.
When Oakes pleaded not guilty, there was shock and amazement because the evidence against him was completely overwhelming. What he said happened on the night was really extraordinary. He claimed that it was actually Chrissy who was to blame for Shania's death because he claimed that he and Chrissy were kind of grappling with the gun, and that's when the gun had gone off. And I think that was one of the aspects of the case that really angered Chrissy's family.
And that really annoyed me, how he tried to say he killed Mum because Mum killed Shania. I was like, if you're going to do something that's sick, at least don't try and pin it on someone else.
Thanks to Chelsea's brave testimony, the full details of what happened to Chrissy and Shania that night were revealed to the shocked court.
I've covered scores of court cases in my time, but this was one of the most shocking that I've heard. The evidence was absolutely appalling. The atmosphere was incredibly tense as the details of what he'd done emerged.
Dave come in. He brought a whole bag of tools with him, a drill, knives, a shotgun. He was drinking heavily. He chopped part of Chris's ear. She was bleeding heavy.
My last moments with my mum was her telling me that she loved me. No matter what happens, she'll always love me. She'll always be proud of me. And that I just need to save myself.
Chelsea, she's the bravest little girl I know ever. She must have been petrified, but she ran to get help for her mummy and her sister.
I know it's been like a long time, but you still think about what she went through. And he subjected her to some real pure evil stuff that you would see on a movie. And I can picture her just scared, really, really scared. And it's not right.
There were signs that David Oakes was a really violent man, although nobody could predict that anyone would carry out a crime like this, actually shooting your own 2-year-old daughter at point-blank range.
At the end of the trial, when the jury had reached their verdict, David Oakes refused to attend court.
The moment the jury come back in and did the guilty verdict, we were so happy. We jumped up, happy as well as tears. He should have been there for us to say to him, "Now you rot in hell." But he wasn't.
I was relieved, obviously, because I was scared that he would come and try to find me and kill me because I'd made his plans all go wrong and everything. So I was relieved that he'd be in prison for the rest of his life.
In 2012, Oakes was sentenced to a whole life tariff for the murders of Chrissy and Shania. But he served less than 1 year of his sentence before dying of cancer in 2013.
I think he knew that he had cancer, and that's what initiated his plan, sort of thing, to if he's dying, everyone's dying with him, sort of thing.
He knew he wouldn't live, and he didn't want Shania to call anyone Dad or Chrissy to get with anyone else. That's what I believe.
In 2015, the Independent Police Complaints Commission ruled that Essex police had missed opportunities to arrest Oakes before the murders. And Chelsea and Guy were both awarded compensation for police failings.
Essex police came under an awful lot of criticism around this case because of their failure to take Chrissy's allegations and reports seriously. And unfortunately, this is symptomatic of policing in general. There has historically been a much lower status attached to domestic abuse type offences. We often hear the term just a domestic, and unfortunately, I think that's the view that was taken by quite a lot of officers in this case.
I do regret some days just thinking, oh, I just should have just called the police, should have just done it. Chrissy never showed or told anybody that side of what was happening, and I just wish she did.
Between 2004 and 2021, 69 children have been killed in the UK by parents known to be abusive.
I think we've come an awfully long way in terms of domestic abuse. I think our general awareness of the trajectory of domestic abuse is much better than it used to be. We're much better at spotting the signs in friends, in relatives who are experiencing this kind of thing. But I think in terms of services for survivors, those are not particularly great. We're living in times of austerity, and the funding for the support services is something that's quite a challenge. But I think we are gradually getting better and better at it.
11 years after their mother and sister's murder, Guy and Chelsea have now rebuilt their lives.
Despite having lost that, I've still got so many good things in my life. Despite that being a heavy kick, I never forget that I've still got Chelsea.
Here, ducky, ducky, ducky.
And I've got my own family now. As much as Chelsea's family, I've built myself as much as I could, as good as I could, to be a stepfather as of today. I've got someone I'd like to make my wife one day, and I'm trying to put absolutely everything I've still got in me towards them, and that's just making absolutely everything still worthwhile. They're both everything to me, and they've made me realise that life is enjoyable.
My life growing up was very unstable, traumatic, not healthy situation to be in. And then since I've grown up a bit, getting to grips with where I am now has been quite a challenge. But eventually I've got my own flat, my own cats, I've got a job. It's all quite stable. My money's not too bad, so it's all right now. Can only hopefully get better.